Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Flight Simulator 2020. Today, we are going to talk about the 6 basic instruments of an airplane. You're watching the Pinoy Simviator. The airplane has 6 basic instruments. Just like how musicians have their instruments, pilots have theirs too. These instruments are what pilots use in order for them to keep in control of the aircraft. While there are some instruments that are only equipped to specific airplanes which other airplanes don't have, these 6 basic aircraft instruments are going to be present, mostly. So let's talk about the first one and probably one of the most important aircraft instruments, the airspeed indicator. Airspeed is life. It's a saying that you've probably heard at some point. It's true. There are a lot of things you can fly without, but airspeed isn't one of them. Your primary way of determining airspeed, your airspeed indicator. An airspeed indicator is a device for measuring the forward speed of the aircraft. The airspeed indicator uses the aircraft pitot static system to compare pitot and static pressure, and thus determining the forward speed. We'll dive in to the details of how the airspeed indicator moves its dials and shows its indications in a later video. Airspeed is usually measured and indicated in knots, although other units of measurement are sometimes encountered. On older aircraft, airspeed is usually indicated to the pilot on a graduated scale over which a pointer moves. In modern aircraft, it is usually indicated on a speed tape, which forms part of the electronic flight instrument system display. The ASI has standard color-coded markings to indicate safe operation within the limitations of the aircraft. At a glance, the pilot can determine a recommended speed or if speed adjustments are needed. Single and multi-engine aircraft have common markings. For instance, the green arc indicates the normal operating range of the aircraft. The white arc indicates the flap operating range. It is used typically for approaches and landings. The yellow arc cautions that flight should be conducted in this range only in smooth air, while the red line at the top of the yellow arc indicates damage or structural failure may result at higher speeds. So now, let's move on to the next basic instrument, the attitude indicator. Simply put, this instrument depicts the position of the aircraft in relation to the horizon. This instrument shows if the wings are level or if the plane is pitching up or pitching down. The attitude indicator is the only instrument that gives a direct and immediate picture of pitch attitude and bank attitude or bank angle. Any changes to pitch attitude or bank angle by the pilot will normally be made with reference to the attitude indicator. The attitude indicator is commonly called the AI. The main features of an attitude indicator are an artificial horizon line, or also known as the horizon bar, and a miniature airplane, which is fixed to the case of the instrument. This symbolic airplane moves with the instrument case and the real airplane, while the horizon line remains level with the real horizon outside. For the instrument pilot, the attitude indicator is the master instrument in the cockpit, providing a clear visual representation of the airplane's movement about two axes, pitch and roll. However, since the AI does not have any landmarks on its horizon line, it does not provide any information on yaw. Using this instrument, the pilot is going to be able to determine how much bank angle are they going to use to turn, or how much pitch angle would they like to move up or down. The white markings on the upper part of the attitude indicator shows the bank angles starting from the middle, which indicates a wings level attitude, followed by a 10-degree bank, 20-degree bank, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and lastly 60 degrees respectively. If the needle is not centered, then that means the airplane is in a banking position, which would result in an aircraft to turn. The markings starting from the center of the attitude indicator shows the pitch angles starting from a straight and level flight, 5-degree pitch, 10 degrees, 15, 20, and lastly 25 degrees. If the miniature aircraft does not align with the horizon bar, then that means the aircraft is either pitching up or down. This instrument is really important, especially when you are inside a cloud layer where you can easily be disoriented. Inside the clouds, you won't be able to see anything outside. If you are not looking at your instruments, things can easily go wrong for you. Moving on to the next basic instrument, we have the altimeter. In aviation, altitude refers to how high an aircraft is above the mean sea level, which is how high the aircraft is above the average level of the Earth's oceans. The altimeter is the instrument that supplies this information. This instrument displays the airplane's current altitude in relation to the sea level. The altimeter has 3 hands. Each hand tells different measurements of distance the plane has at any given point. The designs in the instrument may vary depending on the plane, but the 3 hands measure in hundreds, thousands, and 10,000 feet. An ordinary aircraft altimeter is nothing more than a sensitive barometer, an instrument that measures air pressure. It works to measure height above the sea level because the air's pressure decreases at a more or less regular rate as you ascend. Altimeter readings and settings vary depending on where you are flying, what the area temperature is, and how much atmospheric pressure there is. We are going to talk about this in a later video. So now let's move on to the next base instrument, the vertical speed indicator. The vertical speed indicator, or the VSI, also known as a rate of climb and descent indicator, RCDI, is an instrument which indicates the rate of climb or descent of an aircraft. The VSI uses the aircraft pitot-static system to determine the vertical speed and depicts the result on a conventional needle and circular scale instrument or on a ribbon at the side of an electronic flight instrument system. This information helps the pilot determine the aircraft's trend, whether the aircraft is climbing or descending. The VSI reacts before changes in the altimeter is sensed, allowing the pilot to be alerted quicker. The VSI is calibrated differently depending on the country and its hues. The rate of descent and the rate of climb is measured in feet per minute, meters per second, or nautical miles per hour. The VSI can go by many different names to include variometer, the rate of climb indicator, a vertical velocity indicator, or a vertical speed indicator. The vertical speed indicator, the airspeed indicator, and the altimeter are what we call as the pitot-static instruments. All of these instruments use the pitot-static system in order for them to show their respective readings. A blocked pitot tube is a pitot-static problem that will only affect airspeed indicators. A blocked static port is a more serious situation because it affects all pitot-static instruments. One of the most common causes of a blocked static port is airframe icing. A blocked static port will cause the altimeter to freeze at a constant value at the altitude at which the static port became blocked. The vertical speed indicator will read 0 and will not change at all, even if vertical speed increases or decreases. The airspeed indicator will reverse the error that occurs with a clogged pitot tube and cause the airspeed to be read less than it actually is as the aircraft climbs. When the aircraft is descending, the airspeed will be overreported. In most aircraft with unpressurized cabins, an alternative static source is available and can be selected from within the cockpit. The next instrument we're going to be talking about is the heading indicator. The heading indicator or direction indicator shows the complete compass view of the plane. It shows the current direction of the head of the plane as the plane moves about its flight. The outline of the plane is set in the middle and turns accordingly, much like a compass, around a 360-degree scale with directional markings being north, south, east, and west. Because the heading indicator has no direction-seeking qualities of its own, it must be set to agree with the magnetic compass. This should be done only on the ground or in straight and level unaccelerated flight when magnetic compass indications are steady and reliable. The pilot should set the heading indicator by turning the heading indicator reset knob at the bottom of the instrument to set the compass card to the correct magnetic heading. The pilot of a light aircraft should check the heading indicator against the magnetic compass at least every 15 minutes to assure accuracy. Because the magnetic compass is subject to certain errors, the pilot should ensure that these errors are not transferred to the heading indicator. In a controlled airspace, a controller will typically give vectors or directions to a certain aircraft to maintain order and safety to the air traffic. The pilot then ensures that they are following the vectors given to them by turning to the heading that was given. They would then look at the heading indicator or their magnetic compass to comply. Last and certainly not the least basic instrument is the turn coordinator. The turn coordinator is actually a further development of the turn and slip indicator. The turn and slip indicator and the turn coordinator are essentially two aircraft flight instruments in one device. One indicates the rate of turn or the rate of change in the aircraft's heading, and the other part indicates whether the aircraft is in coordinated flight, showing the slip or skid of the turn. The slip indicator is actually an inclinometer that at rest displays the angle of the aircraft's transverse axis with respect to horizontal, and in motion displays this angle as modified by the acceleration of the aircraft. The most commonly used units are degrees per second and minutes per turn. Slipping and skidding within a turn is sometimes referred to as a sloppy turn due to the perceptive discomfort that it can cause to the pilot and passengers. When the aircraft is in a balanced turn or when the ball is centered, passengers experience gravity directly in line with their seat. With a well-balanced turn, passengers may not even realize that the aircraft is turning unless they are viewing objects outside the aircraft. While aircraft slipping and skidding are often undesired in a usual turn that maintains altitude, slipping of the aircraft can be used for practical purposes. Intentionally putting an aircraft into a slip is used as a forward slip and a side slip. These slips are performed by applying opposite inputs of the aileron and rudder controls. A forward slip allows a pilot to quickly drop altitude without gaining unnecessary speed, while a side slip is one method utilized to perform a crosswind landing. If you look at the turn coordinator, it says 2 minutes in the middle of the instrument. When the aircraft is turning and the ball is centered, you are currently at a standard rate turn. A standard rate turn is defined as a 3 degree per second turn, which completes a 360-degree turn in 2 minutes. This is known as a 2-minute turn or rate 1. Fast airplanes or aircraft on certain precision approaches use a half standard rate, but the definition of standard rate does not change. Standardized turn rates are often employed in approaches and holding patterns to provide a reference for controllers and pilots so that each will know what the other is expecting. The pilot banks the aircraft such that the turn and slip indicator points to the mark appropriate for that aircraft and then uses a clock to time the turn. The pilot can roll out at any desired direction depending on the length of time in the turn. Using the turn coordinator is important, especially when you are following charts. The pilot is often required to do a certain turn when following procedures on that specific chart. We will be talking about those charts in a later video. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 6 basic aircraft instruments: the airspeed indicator, altimeter, vertical speed indicator, the attitude indicator, the heading indicator, and the turn coordinator. These instruments are really important when flying the airplane. So make sure that you follow and master the usage of these instruments. I hope you guys learned a little bit something today and hope that you will be interested in becoming an aviator one day. If you have any questions for me, please do let me know in the comments down below, as well as flight requests and destinations that you would like me to fly into using an aircraft of your choice, of course. Please do let me know as well. If you liked this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. Make sure to click on the notification bell for early updates. And once again, I am the Pinoy Simviator. Safe skies.